We welcome next Geoff Neustadt, Commissioner Geoff Neustadt, who is running for mayor this time around, and we will keep it really informal. We have a little brief intro for you to anything you want to state. We've got a couple of questions for you, and then a brief closing statement after that. So, you want to start?
Sure.
Anytime you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. It's great to see such a good crowd here at the Advocates Caucus. My name is Geoff Neustadt. I'm running to be your next mayor of the village of Downers Grove. I'm a hometown dedicated leader of our community and have been since 2007 when I was first elected to the Downers Grove Village Council. I was successfully re-elected in 2011 to my second term. And during that second term, I was unanimously appointed to be your mayor pro tem by my colleagues on the village council. I'm a dedicated public servant, and I have more than just my elected service. I'm actually a public servant in my day job too. I work for Downers Grove Grade School District 58 in the maintenance department. And my day job allows me to physically be in Downers Grove every day. I travel around town, I see our school buildings, I see our community, our neighborhood, I see it grow during the day. I see it change from kind of a quiet community at 6 a.m. to a really busy community during the day. And I think that's something that's important for our elected officials to see. I've worked at District 58 for 20 years and have a lot of municipal crossover experience from the work that I do with our fire alarm system, burglar alarm system, our water line and water service. A lot of things that we do at the village communicates well and crosses over well to my job at District 58. A little bit more about me. My lovely wife Leslie is here. I have two sons, David, who's 6, Declan, who's 21 months old. I've lived in Downers Grove my entire life, 39 years. We choose to raise our family here, and it's a wonderful place to live. I want to continue to serve our residents, and I want to continue to make sure that Downers Grove is a place where people want to move their family and raise their children.
Thank you. The first question, there's been a lot of talk during recent years regarding the consolidation of taxing bodies and the elimination of duplicative services between local governments. Please provide your thoughts on this issue and what you might do to promote your ideas if elected.
Thank you for that question. It's great. We actually have done some of that already, combining a 911 dispatch center for Westmont and Downers Grove. I think it ended up saving Westmont a few more dollars than it did Downers Grove, but it certainly was a great first step in a very important service. As we look at consolidation, the actual consolidation of 911 dispatch centers is still an ongoing conversation. But because Downers Grove has already been a leader in the formation of this shared 911 center, we'll be able to retain and use our model as a progress point going forward for other municipalities and communities. The combination of local municipalities where there's redundant services, where there are redundant needs and kind of multiple uses and multiple services, I think there's always an opportunity to look at that and find who does the service best, who does it the most responsible with the budget, and how can the service best be delivered for the residents. Snow plowing is a perfect example. There's spots in town where a Village of Downers Grove snowplow truck drives down for a couple of blocks, lifts their plow because they've gone into a township area, drives around the corner, puts their plow down. I think in a collaborative and combined effort, we could work on those kind of snow routes to make sure that everybody's really delivering the best service in the best spot. Municipal services are very, very important. Police, fire, and public works. I think from my perspective, public works and things like the sanitary district, other combined areas that have a very important use that maybe open up a street together. Maybe the public works and the sanitary district jobs, projects can be combined, and actually the village does a very good job of bundling projects. So if we're in a neighborhood doing a roadway reconstruction, we're certainly going to knock on the door of the sanitary district and say, hey guys, are you doing a project here? We'd like to make sure we don't affect that block or that street more than once. That would be a total waste of time and money and resources. So even if it's not a combining or a consolidation of local municipalities, the communication and the connection to really the professional staff in those organizations to come together to make sure that they're not duplicating services or providing services that are overlapping. I think that's a smart way to go. And I'll certainly support what we can do. I think there's a couple options. Our fire department is big, and it's a great fire department. Obviously, we do a wonderful job with that service. I think there's some other districts and smaller departments around us that are more able to consolidate and come together, and I know our fire chief here and our village council will do what we can to support our neighbors in their efforts to consolidate as well.
Thank you. In his first budget address, Governor Rauner suggested a new formula for the return of tax dollars to municipalities through the local government distributed fund. It is possible that this would result in an annual $2.4 million reduction in historic levels of funding to the village from the state. If Governor Rauner's vision becomes a reality, how would you propose making ends meet?
Well, it is a major threat to our village budget, there's no doubt, and we've already started to take steps to address what may happen as soon as July. Our state, as we know, is always in a constant state of unknown, and I'm hopeful that there will be a compromise solution. I'm hopeful that some sort of responsible budgeting happens at the state level. What we have to do in Downers Grove is be prepared for that, but we also have to continue to offer the services that we provide now. We can't be reactionary and say, well, we're not going to go to a police call or we're going to skip that fire call. We still have to continue those services. So finding a way to still have the municipal services that we've all come to depend on at the level that we've depended on them would be my priority, to make sure that those things are managed first. Let's not forget water. We deliver the fresh, clean water. That's another high priority of mine, to make sure that we fund those water sources and those water systems to make sure that our residents have fresh, clean drinking water. One of the things that I think that we can do as an organization that we've already begun is certainly talking to our state legislators and our representatives in Springfield. By reaching out to them and letting them know the impacts of what the changes in Springfield will bring to the municipalities, they'll have an understanding of the severity of what could happen. Right now, currently, the village has already started to do some things in reaction to the state budget address, delaying vehicle purchases, not hiring essential jobs. I think we have a number of open positions right now, including an IT manager, seasonal engineers, a couple of different engineering positions. The only positions that we are actively hiring, and I think we actually just did hire this week, are some public safety police officers. All other hirings are going to be put on hold until we have a better understanding of what's going to happen with our budget from the state's impacts. We certainly have to be ready for anything from our state, and I think because of our long-range plan, because of the way that we've positioned ourselves and we have done so well to forecast our financial position, we're able to react differently than our neighbors. There's been a unanimous support for not spending down our reserve. We need that reserve for a different catastrophe, not this fiscal catastrophe that could come from our state. Having a solid reserve policy is something that we are very much in control of, and we need to keep that. If we spend down our reserve and don't have a way to recapture those dollars next year through property tax or anything else, then what happens if there is another need for that reserve? We're being in really tough shape. So I think working with that as the guiding principle, keep our reserves intact and at the current policy, and then trying to find things that we can delay, rearrange, until we can really understand what the impacts are going to be is the prudent way to go through this current threat from our state.
In 2007-8, the Downers Grove Village Council passed an ethics ordinance containing restrictions on, among other things, term limits, campaign financing, and financial disclosure. How do you feel it has worked, and would you promote changes to the ordinance as it stands right now?
I think it's worked great. I supported the entire ethics ordinance in 2007. There was an ability for council members to break out and vote against certain parts of the ethics ordinance. I was very much in favor of the entire ordinance, and others were not. The ability for our elected officials, and maybe it's a selfish comment, but to be able to close that campaign account and not perpetually campaign and raise money, I think is a benefit for our community. It means that the elected officials are doing their job to represent the entire community, not trying to always go out there and get that next $150 check. We've had that before in Downers Grove. We've had elected officials who've had a very large war chest over the years of their tenure at the village council, and I don't think that worked well. I think if you haven't, when you're going through your campaign, it's campaign season. It's not my favorite thing to do to ask for donations, but campaigns cost money. being responsible with those dollars and being responsible and following the rule of Downers Grove, which is to close your campaign account after the election and open it only before the campaign starts. That's the right thing to do. Disclosure of who donates to your campaign, disclosure from folks doing business with the village. If they are doing business with us, that's the right thing to do. I think ethics it can be a lot of things to a lot of people, but one of the most important things to me is that, you know, doing the right thing is the right thing no matter what, whether it's campaign season or whether it's, you know, the first day after you've been sworn in. It should be every day. You know, I know there's been a lot of discussion about ethicality of endorsements and ethicality of stuff happening in our village right now. I'd like to tell you a quick story about what I think is ethical. This campaign season, I've returned over $1,500 to people who donated to me that may do business with the village. And I think that it's up to me, and it allows me to tell a story about the Downers Grove Ethics Ordinance. Our ethics ordinance is stronger than any other ethics ordinance, I think, around. Not only in our state, I wish our state would follow our ethics ordinance, we'd probably get a lot more done. But returning those dollars and returning those donations allows me to tell the story about our ethics ordinance and why it's so important and where we were in the past and where we are now. And I'll tell you what, when you give somebody that check back and say, here's why I can't take it, you see light bulbs, you see fireworks, you see all sorts of things going off, because I think it really shows a level of respect for our ethics ordinance, for our community, and for the process that we're going through as public servants. You know, most of us are not politicians, and I think you've probably heard that today once or twice maybe, but we aren't. We're bankers, we're small business owners, we're maintenance mechanics, we're lawyers, we're everything but politicians, and that's how it should be at the local level. And, you know, friends and family donating, that's great, but when there's somebody that may be requesting something of the village, it's important to make sure they understand that, you know, we have a different ethics ordinance. And also, one last, you know, comment about ethics. Our family, my cousins have a company in town, Nuco Inc., and they've had a very, very successful run in the last number of years, and they've expanded their property multiple times. And while I didn't have to, I certainly did the right thing and abstained from voting on any zoning issues for that company. I just think that don't want to have any sense of people saying, well, there's a Neustadt voting for a Neustadt. It's just wrong. So I abstained from those votes, and hopefully there'll be many more for Nuco as they continue to grow, but I'll continue to step aside on those votes.
Every village council faces controversial land use petitions. How would you propose to resolve the common occurrence of conflict regarding the rights of property owners and the concerns or objections of the public?
Well, I think our zoning ordinance, you know, after the rewrite, it tried to alleviate some of those concerns. We just rewrote our zoning ordinance not too long ago as a response to our comprehensive plan. The zoning ordinance is an important document for any village because it sets the path of the future of what our land is to be used for. I think, in my opinion, private property rights are very important. And if I want to have 7 dogs on my property, which I believe is actually against the ordinance, you can only have 4. I should follow the rule, right? I should only have 4 dogs. If I want to have an 18-foot fence, but it's not allowed in the zoning ordinance, I should follow the zoning ordinance. But I still should be able to have my fence, and I still should be able to have my dogs. We all have to follow through with what the zoning ordinance outlines. I think there's a balance that can be found, and I think there's ways where an elected body can certainly communicate and listen and hear from residents on what's happening. We have the ability to amend and change our zoning ordinance if needed, if there's a case that comes up that would require that. But I support our current zoning ordinance because I think there was a lot of I know there was a lot of hard work that went into it to get it to its position where it is now. Private property rights are very important. Private rights for trees, private rights for rights-of-way, and encumbrances over property need to be maintained, but we also need to make sure that our village is positioned to continue to grow. We are landlocked in Downers Grove, and we want to make sure that our land use plan and our zoning plan sets forth options for residents coming and going from Downers Grove, and businesses as well.
If successful in your campaign for public office in this election, what do you anticipate will be the most challenging aspect of the next 4 years?
Well, number one, it's already a challenge, and that's the state threat for our budget. I think if any one or parts of these financial threats come through, we'll certainly have to figure out and address those issues first off. The The other thing I would like to try to address is the culture of Downers Grove as a political town. Our village has recently gone through some stressful times. We've had some meetings that have been disorganized and somewhat not well put together. What I would like to bring to the mayor's office is a connection of neighbors and neighborhoods, bringing kind of the nonpartisanness of our positions back to Village Hall. We're supposed to be nonpartisan for a reason. Our offices are all nonpartisan. I'm not affiliated with any political organization on either side of the aisle. I think that's really important. And I think if the leader of the community puts his money where his mouth is and says, listen, we're not going to participate in that stuff. We're going to have a community-driven meeting style. We're going to have a community-driven attitude and communication style. We're going to succeed together. Having influences other than what our community needs and what the best interests of our community are doesn't have a place in local government. The challenge that I see as the next big one after the threat, I think, would be responsibly communicating with our neighbors and our residents. Certainly, I think our village has come a long way since 2007, but we can always do better. The use of social media, the use of our hometown times, the use of our reverse 911 dialing, those are all really great things that have worked well. We've found some people that have been lost. We've helped solve some pretty important police cases in our community with the reverse 911. But we need to get our message out. Maybe the message needs to be worded differently, but we also need to get that message out to as many people as we can, so folks know what's happening in their village and they feel like they are part of that conversation. They feel like they can go to the grocery store, go to pick up at school and say, listen, I heard about this zoning issue over on Saratoga. Are they going to turn that gas station into a strip mall, or is it going to be a gas station again? You know that one down there next to Starbucks? I want people to be able to have that conversation, have the right information, and not be misled by communications that are happening in town. The communication coming from the municipality needs to be honest and accurate so folks can make a really good decision on how they accept those pieces of information.
Thank you. And finally, and you can roll this into any closing statements that you may want to make. What leadership experience do you bring to the office you are running for? And what, let me try this again. What leadership experience do you bring to the office you are running for that makes you more qualified than other candidates seeking the same job?
Thank you. A good friend of mine said this not too long ago, that leadership is action, not a position. I have been the mayor pro tem since 2013, and as soon as I got that position, I was very thankful to have it. I started to communicate probably even more with my colleagues than I had previous to that. Literally a weekly call when we have meetings, so not every week, but a weekly call when we have council meetings to my colleagues to simply be there to listen and ask if they have any concerns or questions about that upcoming meeting. It's worked very well. Some of my colleagues take the call, some don't. But when we do, we have a back and forth conversation. We don't always agree, but at least we talk. And I think that helps promote a wonderful meeting environment. I've also, as mayor pro tem, been allowed to be at Friday morning mayor meetings where the agendas are set. I do think that there's a lot more that can be done with how our agendas are created, how our agendas are organized, so we have better flow of our meetings. You know, 7 of us are very busy with families and everything else going on. But more importantly, residents want to come in here and they want to see what's happening in our village council. A meeting that goes to 11 o'clock with public comment at the end is not conducive to good public comment. We recently rearranged our public comment, and you know, there's pros and cons to having public comment at the end versus in the beginning. I think, you know, good leaders adjust and amend, but they also talk to their colleagues and try to figure out what's the best route. As far as leadership, I've actually been the president of a local association at District 58 for a couple of different terms, just recently again from last year until I think it's a 2-year term. So organizing my colleagues at work, my coworkers, to offer the services of our custodial maintenance division at the highest level that we can. You know, leading through effective meetings, through communicating with colleagues, and then leading by listening, I guess is something that I just kind of popped into my head, but leading by listening to residents, business owners, people who we interact with all over the village will allow me to then work with my colleagues on the village council understand really what's happening and really what people are interested in. Leading by listening, I think I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Another thing about leadership, you know, and I actually wrote this one down because I think it's important, making hard decisions and votes that are not always popular, but that are in the best interest for our community. Voting for the best interest in our community, not voting for votes, is 100% a priority of mine. And you cannot, as the mayor, as the leader, as anyone, because you have the last vote, say, well, it's going to pass or it failed, so I'm going to vote this way for the popular vote. I think that that is a lack of leadership, and it's a lack of doing the right thing for the entire community.
If you had any other closing thoughts?
Well, thanks, I do. Just a few. You know, the most important thing in an election, the most important thing in a campaign isn't, the most important thing is just voting. And I guess being an educated voter, being here today, listening to all the opportunities that you have to hear from candidates participating, candidates being available to have conversations or even answer questions from concerned residents, it has to happen, not just during a campaign, but it has to happen each year of your term. Being elected in Downers Grove is a privilege. It is something that I take extremely seriously. My wife will tell you sometimes too much when I want to go shopping and I don't go outside of the village limits. But being an elected leader in Downers Grove isn't just about showing up on Tuesday night. Being an elected leader in Downers Grove is being available all the time. It's being available to your constituency. It's being available to business owners, being available to Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Corporation. We're not just available during the small window of a campaign. One of the things that my opponent had brought up in the last uncontested race was that he wanted to have a summit of all the local elected leaders. That never happened. As soon as I was made mayor pro tem, I got together all the seconds in charge of the sanitary district, school district, library board, art board. We had a very, very informal meeting actually over at the PGA Tour Superstore. There may or may not have been a long drive contest before we started, but it literally was, you know, a handful of elected leaders or appointed leaders sitting down to talk about their individual municipalities' goals, needs, and futures. And I think out of that conversation came a realization that there are a lot of shared things, that there are a lot of shared opportunities, whether it's buying the bulk paper towels or whether it's sharing insurance costs. I mean, why can't we have an insurance exchange for all the municipalities in Downers Grove, District 58, District 99, coming together with the village who already provides the insurance administration for the Park District. We get all that together, you know, there's an opportunity there for savings. When we save as an organization, we save as a community. So, in closing, I would like to just ask for those that are here today to continue to be informed, to continue to look for information on candidates wherever you can find it. Certainly, my website's a great spot to look for me. It's geoffneustadt.com. You can find a lot of information on there about what I think about more of the issues than we were able to talk about today, but also see some of the work that I've done over the years, not just on the Village Council, but in my other endeavors around town. And of course, it's something I've learned over the last 2 elections. When in a room with Downers Grove voters, you always ask for your vote on April 7th. Please remember that voting is your right, and we should all exercise that right. If you exercise one time this year, let's do it on April 7th. Thank you very much.